clerk Rebecca Hill read the verdict in the Murdaugh murder trial. After 6 weeks of testimony, it took the 12-person jury less than 3 hours on a Thursday night to come back with their verdict. The disgraced South Carolina attorney, Murdaugh, was found guilty in the brutal, cold-blood murders of his wife Maggie and his son Paul. Murdaugh was sentenced to 2 life sentences in a maximum security prison in McCormick, South Carolina. Now, there are serious questions that have been raised about the role of the clerk of court in that decision. September 5th was an absolute bombshell. I think we all thought we were done with the Murdaugh case. Attorneys for convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh say they have new evidence that shows jury tampering by Colton County Court Clerk Rebecca Hill.
Today, Jim Griffin and I filed a petition based on newly discovered evidence with the South Carolina Court of Appeals to stay Alex Murdaugh's appeal. What we had filed today, supported by sworn testimony of jurors, is that the clerk of court had improper private communications with the jurors, and the subject matter of those communications was the credibility of the defense that the Murdaugh legal defense team put up, and it was the believability of the defendant's own testimony. You love Paul?
I love him. Like no other. He and Buster.
Love Maggie?
More than anything.
Did you kill Maggie?
No, I did not kill Maggie. Not kill Paul.
Reported to us by the jurors that the clerk of court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony, watch out for his body language, and if that is true, which we have every reason to believe that it is, and no reason to believe that it's not, there's no choice but the courts to grant a new trial.
In the days and weeks that followed the trial, the defense began hearing of jury tampering. Initially, they could not get to the root of those rumors until some new evidence came to light.
So immediately in the aftermath of the verdict, we had received information that we needed to look into what happened in the jury room. We started down that road, and we met a zone of silence. And then when the clerk of court wrote her book, published her book, that zone of silence collapsed. And jurors were upset about that, the ones we talked with, and they were more than willing to come forward and tell us the things that we had sort of heard through a whisper campaign.
If half of what's in that affidavit is true, the prosecution has a problem.
I think the allegations are serious. I think when you become a public official, unfortunately, you open yourself up to that kind of scrutiny. I think it's been unfair that she's been tarred and feathered so quickly by Harpootlian and the defense in such a public fashion, and I'm confident that there's going to be a different side of the story that we're going to hear when this goes to a new hearing.
So y'all, we do have some news in the Alex Murdaugh Ashley update. Last week they filed a motion for a new trial for Alex, and it broke last night at 6:30 that they don't want that judge Clifton Newman to preside over this new one. And here's what it says. I'm reading the article right now. Attorneys for convicted killer Alex Murdaugh asked the South Carolina Supreme Court Wednesday to remove Judge Clifton Newman from his case 1 week after filing a motion for a new trial. The judge sentenced Murdaugh, 55, to 2 life terms in March for the murder of his wife Maggie and his son Paul, after a Colton County judge voted to convict on all accounts. Defense lawyers Judge Griffin and Dick Harpton have argued that Murdaugh deserves a new trial based in part on allegations that court clerk Becky Hill pressured jurors to return a guilty verdict to land a book deal. In the latest filing, the attorneys alleged that Newman was a witness in the matters that will feature prominently in a hearing for a new trial, and it would be a conflict for him to preside over the proceedings. In addition, Newman has expressed his opinions about Murdaugh in and outside of court, including in an interview in NBC's Today Show and at a televised panel at his alma mater, Cleveland State University. And he says, "In my mind, no doubt, he loved his family. I don't believe that he hated his wife, and certainly don't believe that he did not love his son, but he committed an unforgivable, unimaginable crime, and there's no way that he'll be able to sleep peacefully," he told on the auditorium of university students, elaborating on a comment that he made about Murdaugh's March the 3rd sentencing. Now, that was by Judge Clifton Newman. The attorneys argue that a judge's comments float the code of judicial conduct. Mr. Murdaugh's right to have his appeal read by an impartial judge will be violated if Judge Newman proceeds to hear his motion for a new trial. The motion says, adding that they are not accusing the jurist of having done anything improper during this trial. Murdaugh was convicted of gunning down his wife and son in June of 2021 at the family's former hunting estate, which is Moselle. The defense team is asking the Supreme Court to bar Newman from presiding over any cases involving Murdaugh, including an upcoming financial crimes trial in Beaufort County over the theft of more than $4 million. Murdaugh is accused of pocketing insurance payouts that were supposed to go to the heirs of his late housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, who died after tripping and falling on his property. The case is supposed to go to trial on November 27th, but attorneys are asking the Supreme Court to halt the proceedings until a ruling is made on whether to remove Newman. Griffin and Harpington have repeatedly requested that Newman recuse himself, but he has declined. Newman, who will turn 72 this month, is expected to retire at the end of the year. And the South Carolina Attorney's Office, which is prosecuting Murdaugh, did not immediately respond to the request for a comment. On whether the lead prosecutor would object to the motion. So, do y'all think he'll get his way? Do you think he'll get a new judge? Do you think Judge Clifton will be thrown off of this case? Y'all let me know down in the comments below.